It was a rainy night in October, the kind where the chill seeps into your bones. I was leaving a friend's party, tired and looking forward to my warm bed. As I stepped out, the rain seemed to intensify, urging me to seek shelter. That's when I saw it. An Uber parked right in front of me. Its arrival was timely, almost too perfect. My phone was dead, so I hadn't ordered it, but the driver rolled down the window and called out my name. "Jordan? Uber for Jordan?" he asked, his voice unsettlingly calm. I hesitated. My name is indeed Jordan, but something felt off. The street was eerily deserted, and the car's windows were tinted too dark to see inside properly. However, the relentless rain and the thought of the long walk home in this downpour nudged me to make a decision I would soon regret. I climbed into the back seat, and as soon as I shut the door, the car sped off. I tried to make small talk, but the driver remained silent, his eyes fixed on the road. The usual city landmarks began to blur into unfamiliar territory. Fear crept up my spine as I realized we were headed somewhere secluded. I demanded to be let out, but the driver ignored me, his expression unchanged. Then, the car abruptly stopped in the middle of nowhere. I tried the door. It was locked. Panic set in. The driver turned around, his face obscured in shadow, and whispered, "Your ride is just beginning." The car doors unlocked with a loud click. "Get out," the driver commanded, his voice colder than the rain outside. I stepped out into the unknown, finding myself in a dense forest. The car sped away, leaving me alone with nothing but the whispering trees and the relentless rain. I wandered aimlessly, hoping to find a way out. The forest seemed alive, with every rustle and shadow making my heart race. The trees felt like silent watchers, their branches reaching out like twisted fingers. I stumbled upon an old rundown cabin, its windows dark, the wood rotting. Desperation overrode my fear, and I approached, seeking any form of shelter. As I pushed the creaking door open, a chill ran down my spine. The cabin was filled with strange symbols and old photographs plastered on the walls. Faces I couldn't recognize, their eyes seeming to follow me. In the center of the room, a flickering candle illuminated an open box with writings I couldn't understand. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, heart pounding, only to see the room empty but for the haunting shadows. The air grew colder, and the whispering seemed to grow louder, as if the cabin itself was speaking to me. I felt watched, trapped in a nightmare. The photograph's eyes bore into me, and the symbols on the walls seemed to glow faintly. That's when I heard it. Footsteps outside, slow and deliberate. They circled the cabin, coming closer to the door. I braced myself, expecting the worst. As the footsteps reached the door, they stopped. I held my breath, waiting. Then without warning, the sounds vanished. I cautiously approached the door and flung it open, half expecting to face my captor, but there was nothing, only the dense dark forest. I ran without looking back, driven by pure instinct. The trees blurred as I sprinted, the rain pelting me relentlessly. Just when I thought I couldn't run any longer, I saw lights in the distance, a welcoming glow of civilization. I emerged from the forest, finding myself on the outskirts of the city. My relief was overwhelming. I made my way back, every step fueled by the adrenaline of my escape. The night's events were surreal, like figments of a twisted dream, but the reality was undeniable. I had escaped something unexplainable, something that lurked in the shadows of that forest and that abandoned cabin. As I finally reached the safety of my home, the first light of dawn was breaking. I was soaked, exhausted, and shaken to the core. I knew I would never forget this night, the night I took an Uber I never ordered, and faced terrors beyond my wildest nightmares. But I was alive, and at that moment, that was all that mattered. In the days that followed, the world seemed different, as if I was seeing it through a new lens. I tried to resume my normal life, but the shadows of that night lingered. Sleep was elusive, haunted by dreams of the twisted trees and whispering winds. I found myself jumping at the slightest noise, and the sight of an Uber in the street sent shivers down my spine. Determined to find answers, I began researching. I sourced the internet for any mention of the forest, the cabin, or the mysterious Uber driver. My efforts led me to a local legend of a haunted forest, tales of people vanishing without a trace, and stories of strange happenings. It was a rabbit hole of folklore and urban myths, each more unsettling than the last. I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to understand what had happened to me to ensure it didn't happen again to me or anyone else. I reached out to people who had posted about similar experiences, but many were reluctant to speak. Those who did talk only added to the mystery, with accounts of strange visions and feelings of being watched. As the pieces of the puzzle slowly came together, I realized that my experience was part of something larger, a tapestry of unexplained events tied to that forest, and perhaps to that very cabin. I learned of an old forgotten road that ran through the forest, one that locals avoided and whispered about in hushed tones. Armed with this knowledge, I made a decision. I would return to the forest, to that cabin, to confront whatever secrets lay hidden there. I needed closure to put an end to the fear that had taken root in my life. The day I went back was overcast, the sky a blanket of gray. As I approached the forest, every step felt heavier, as if I was walking against an invisible force. The cabin, when I finally reached it, looked even more ominous than I remember. Its decaying walls and dark windows seemed to mock my return. I pushed the door open, half expecting the horrors of that night to come flooding back. But the cabin was just an empty shell, devoid of the sinister presence I had felt before. The photographs were gone, the symbols erased, leaving nothing but the echo of my own footsteps. I searched every inch, looking for anything that could explain what had happened, but there was nothing, just the remnants of the place long abandoned. As I stood there in the hollow quiet of the cabin, I realized that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved. Some shadows never fully illuminated. Maybe the cabin was just a cabin, its sinister aura a product of my panicked mind. Or perhaps it was something more, a place where the veil between reality and nightmare was dangerously thin. I left the cabin, feeling a mix of disappointment and relief. The forest, which had once seemed so menacing, now appeared just a normal stretch of wilderness. As I walked back to the city, the sense of being watched had vanished. It seemed as though confronting my fear had broken its hold over me. In the weeks that followed, life returned to a semblance of normality. The night of terror became a distant memory, like a bad dream fading upon waking. Yet every now and then, when the night is especially dark and the wind whispers through the trees, a chill runs down my spine and I remember the Uber that I never ordered, the forest of whispers, and the cabin that held secrets in its decaying walls. And I am reminded that there are things in this world that defy explanation, experiences that challenge our understanding of reality. My encounter with the unknown changed me, taught me to respect the mysteries that lurk in the shadows. As for the Uber, I never saw it again. But sometimes when a car slows down beside me on a deserted street, I can't help but hold my breath, half expecting to hear my name called out from the darkness. Thank you for listening to I Didn't Call an Uber. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like, and if you enjoy hearing stories from me, please subscribe and become a resident of Hill Street, and let me know how I'm doing in the comments. And I hope all of you have a fantastic night.